on digital radio,
92 to 95 FM
and 810 medium wave.
BBC Radio Scotland.
The time is 24 minutes to 9. Campaigners from Scotland are in London today for the start of the public inquiry into the infected blood scandal that left around 30,000 people infected with hepatitis C and HIV in the 1970s and 80s. 10% of those affected were in Scotland, among them many haemophiliacs treated with infected blood products. Bill Wright is chairman of Haemophilia Scotland. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. What are you hoping from this inquiry?
Well, one of the standard responses is to get to the truth. Unfortunately, after the passage of 30 years, it's unlikely that we will get to the full truth because, of course, so many people have died along with their medical records. And, of course, a number of ministers and civil servants and some of the consultants involved in prescribing the treatment under which we were infected have also died. So I think that's likely to be a big test for Sir Brian Langstaff and his inquiry team because just so much material has disappeared. But this is not just about the truth, it's not just about compensation, it's actually about learning lessons as to how we conduct health, and that's everyone's health in the future.
Is it going to contribute more than the Penrose Inquiry? Which was held in Scotland, and many people said that was a whitewash and it wasn't adequate.
Well, after 6 years and 12 million quid's worth, I very much hope so, given that there's only a single recommendation from that particular inquiry. What we want to see from Brian Langstaff's inquiry are dozens and dozens and dozens of recommendations about how we A, respond to this disaster, and B, look to the future in terms of how we treat haemophilia and generally how we treat people in terms of their care plans and medical records and actually having knowledge of what's happening to them.
You say it's not about the money, but for some people they're still, very much in straitened circumstances because they were given infected blood and it's changed their whole life and it's changed their financial circumstances. So for many people, it is about the money. And why should that be a bad thing?
You're completely correct about that, and I myself have experienced that along with many, many others. We do have to acknowledge that in Scotland, people who have been infected by HIV and hepatitis C and their widows have actually benefited much more greatly because of the work that we've done with Scottish Government. But there are still a considerable number of people who have to be better provided for, people that we call stage 1 and stage 0, and also those people who might have been infected in England but live in Scotland and vice versa. And there's also the carers and the families involved who very often are forgotten about, particularly women in this whole story. So we actually have a meeting with Scottish Government ministers on Thursday where we're going to follow up on a clinical review that was led by Professor David Goldberg that's looked at this very issue, in particular the mental health impacts in their widest possible terms.
I know that some law firms, and at least one, is representing a number of people who've been affected by contaminated blood. Are there many of these kind of cases in the pipeline?
Well, there's quite a number of different law firms who are representing different groups at the inquiry. We ourselves are represented by Haemophilia Scotland and the Scottish Infected Blood Forum, along with campaigners in Scotland, are all represented by Thomson solicitors who've got wide experience of this and have been involved in this for 20 years. Other legal firms have come into this story much later in the day, but we believe that we've got a real value in terms of the story that we have to tell from Scotland, because we've had experience of an inquiry. We raised petitions as going back to 1999 in the Scottish Parliament, petition number 45, which is, of course, nearly 19 years ago. I myself went to see my MP in 1997. So we've got a lot of experience that we believe will benefit the inquiry.
I mean, this, of course, has wrecked people's lives and it's consumed people's lives. Can anything put things, well, not exactly right, but settle, that terrible word closure? Can anything bring about that?
I think you've used a really important word there. I suspect we'll never get complete closure on this. This is an issue that's dogged the haemophilia community in particular. And one of the sad things is that there are, of course, now young children who suffer from haemophilia who have perhaps different issues, and worried mothers have got different expectations. But nevertheless, this story hovers over them as well. They may well have children with haemophilia, but have lost fathers who died from HIV or hepatitis C. So different things will bring that word closure, or as close to it as possible, for different people. It's not just about money, it's about things like psychological support, care plans, just apologies, really meaningful apologies, not just something, I'm sorry. And what we need to see is the reasons why governments are sorry and what they're going to do about it.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Bill Wright there, Chairman of the Haemophilia Scotland. It's coming up to 18 minutes to 9.